Today we're going to jump into a quick Talishar game. I got some feedback from you all that you really like the Talishar gameplay videos and the fact that I live commentate through the hands as a way to react to both what's happening on my end of the board as well as what my opponent is doing. And I'm more than happy to keep on making content like that because personally for me, it's much easier for me to live commentate hands rather than post commentate on my hands. Sometimes I don't feel like I can exactly articulate what I'm thinking in the moment when I go back and review gameplay footage. And I think that most of my learning experience comes from talking through hands in real time. Normally this is internal when I'm playing in obviously in a tournament scene. Think through the hands and really put together the pieces of how each hand is working on both offense and defense. So I'm more than happy to keep on making this kind of content. So a couple things, we're of course going to be bringing in Visitronic Model I instead of Chrono Providence. Visitronic Model I lets us get access to Arcane Barrier 3 really easily. And then the only difference in this matchup is we're going to cut one maximum velocity, mostly because it's actually pretty difficult to get off unless if you're going to pitch stack it late game or you get lucky enough and it's an arsenal and you're able to fire it. So it's not really a card you want to heavily rely on, but having 2 in the deck is more than enough. And the biggest difference is going to be starting with the induction chamber as opposed to the Teklo-pounder. So we're going to opt to go first, and we're going to start with the induction chamber on the table. And we're going to have one more in the deck as well as a Teklo-pounder. So running 2 items here. We're not going to run the plasma purifiers mostly because there's really no reason to. A lot of Iyslander doesn't have any way to block wide. So if we're able to get the induction chambers on the table, then there's really not much of an issue. And I think we want to hold on to 2 blues here, mainly because they're going to have tempo going second. And so this way we are able to arsenal red and then keep 2 blues here. Let me turn on, we can use our custom code. That's cool. There we go. Okay. So we have Wounded Bull for 8. So I think what we want to do here, I think we're comfortable taking this. I'm trying to think about this hand. We can go Zipper Hit and then we can play Spark of Genius to either find Teklo-pounder or another induction chamber. Maybe we could block with the T-Bone here. I think blocking with T-Bone is probably fine. We can just soak a little bit of the damage. We're mostly looking for a play where we can just boost Zipper Hit and then play Spark of Genius and go find our second item. I think this card is pretty even on defense and offense, but I don't know how often we're going to get to boost on this turn. So nice thing is that even if the Iyslander is really strong disruption, we still present a threat that they probably should block. Okay, so we get hit with Cold Snap here. We're going to obviously let this resolve. I'm not going to pay for it. Oh, okay. And my opponent is choosing to Waning Moon here. I think we're going to prevent none of it so we can go get our 2-cost item. And I think at this point, we probably want to get the Teklo-pounder instead of the induction chamber. I'm not going to pay the 1. Although leaving Teklo-pounder in at least lets us have a pretty decent blue count going into the rest of the game, but we'll see what happens. Okay, my opponent has a Blizzard is really good here. So I think that changes a few things. So I think we're going to pay for it. And then we're going to pistol. And then we're just going to Spark of Genius for 0 and go get Teklo Core. Pretty unfortunate timing, but it's okay. So we're going to attack with this. Of course, we have to pitch for this. Here we go again as a reaction. Hopefully there's not a second Blizzard. Okay, well, we're going to use our Steam counter to reload the pistol. And then we're going to go play Spark of Genius for 0. Wow, that's a really good arsenal target. It's a really great card to hit. Wow, and this is going to go right into a high octane turn. So what do we even want to... Wow, that's phenomenal. The peak is really unfortunate here, but I think we're okay. I kind of want to pitch down the throttle. Having a lot of... Maybe we just get rid of a blue. I think we get rid of the Teklo Core. It sucks because we're losing a lot of resource efficiency, but I think we need a really strong threat here. So let's... Here's a question. Do we want to use our resources by throttle into 0 to 60 and then pitch out for some pistols and then Arsenal High Octane for maybe a stronger 5-card hand? Or is this probably like the best option we're going to get? The only problem is playing High Octane here. I don't think we're going to get as much efficiency out of it because we're going to be relying on throttle to give us an action point, and throttle costs 2. So I think I'm actually interested in arsenaling the High Octane. This way we're able to keep a blue to hopefully deal with any kind of disruption. Okay, we'll boost this. Okay. Okay, there we go. All right, pistol, let's go again. We'll reload it, both items. Shoot one more time. Opponent is going pretty low here, so they're probably going to try to pivot off of a pretty good returning hand. My guess is probably a card like Ice Vein Fuse, my guess. Oh, okay, so playing something closer to the Michael Hamilton list with a lot of attacks. I think we're probably pretty comfortable. I don't think we want to block this one. This is fine. Wow, okay, a really efficient turn. I mean, that's 12 damage off of 3 cards. Assuming there's nothing else coming, I think we're just gonna play high speed impact into payload. Although we have our last Teklovossen. I think we just take this. Yeah, I just want to be really efficient with the resources we're getting. If we block here, then we kind of burn a card. I guess we could block with 3 cards that turn and play the payload for 6, but I think I just want to pivot here because my opponent is choosing to take a lot of damage. So we're going to play the Combustible Courier and we're going to boost. The reason for not using Gauntlet here is 6 is really easy for Iyslander to block, but 4 at least puts them on a break point. So we either get a piece of armor like they're going to Tunic to Ironhide Gauntlet and then put a card in front, or we're going to get 2 cards from them or a D-React, so it's all kind of the same. And that way we're even able to use the Goliath Gauntlet on probably more important cards. Yep, makes sense. We're going to go high speed impact into payload here, which is pretty nice because sometimes my opponents will block high speed impact with the expectation that the next card is pretty impactful. So giving dominate is it's worth denying dominate, but then you follow up with payload and sometimes they overcommit to the first card and then you still get them anyway. Not really gonna matter here. It doesn't seem like my opponent is interested in trying to stop the effect, but at least, okay. Interesting, so my opponent's actually racing with me here, which is pretty interesting. And this is definitely the turn to pivot in my opinion. We have some pretty cheap cards and a high octane. The only problem is that these cards they don't pitch super well, so that's a problem. So let's think about a couple lines here. We could block for 3, take 5, and then play high speed impact into 0 to 60, and then just pistol. And that's probably fine. We can also keep everything and try to commit to the high octane, but I just don't think that this hand is just lining up well enough, and I think that we're... but also our opponent's at 13, so they're gonna have to start full blocking. The only thing I'm worried about is like any kind of disruption really blows us out, but I think at this point, I think we just pivot. So I think we just take the damage here. I don't know what's in my opponent's arsenal. That card hasn't moved in a while. So I think the question is, what do we want to do here? And I think the answer is that I want to play these 2 cards with the yellow throttle, use Foundry Heart, and then play the last throttle off of it and just save high octane for another turn. This presents 13 damage, so it's lethal, and it can be up to 15 if we use Goliath Gauntlet. So I think this is pretty good. Let's choose to boost. We have not boosted any impactful items yet, so that's pretty good. Okay. Oh wow. Wow, 2 brothers in arms. That's pretty crazy. Yeah, I think we're just gonna use Foundry Heart here. What do we lose? Okay, some average stuff. The question is, do we just use Gauntlet here to just sort of swing it? And I think we do. We potentially get blown out by an ice card here, but I think that's fine. Let's see what happens. Okay. We will not boost. We'll see what my opponent does. Okay. Going to 6. All right. That's pretty risky territory for all of us. Oh, wow. Okay, my opponent pitches channel. We're gonna pitch the max velocity. Just cool with us. We are going to... Oh. Do we just present lethal and this is risky. This is where I would like to use high octane, but it just doesn't work out well enough. I think we just need a boost attack. Because I need to be able to get go again off of... Okay. Okay, so the card was Frost Hex the whole time. I guess it makes sense. Sometimes it's not ideal to be taking damage to play Frost Hex. Maybe this is a good point for my opponent. I think at this point, I'm going to just shoot my opponent for 2. We get hit with a Waning Moon for 3 if it happens, which is a problem, but I think we're okay here. Oh. Interesting. The last card in my opponent's hand is Hypothermia, maybe? Because we saw him pitch a Hypothermia, which is a pretty big deal. I think we're going to go for high octane here. I don't think anything blows us out. Okay, perfect. And now we can come in the zipper hit. I think we probably have it at this point. I think it would take a pretty impactful turn from, but we did see Hypothermia and Ice Eternal from them, so I'm interested as to what's in their arsenal. Okay. Wow. They are gaining a lot of life off of the Fiendal's Fighting Spirits. We're gonna play this for 4. Yeah, this is probably the best time to do it. If it hits and 0 to 60 gets bumped up to a 4, and then that I think should close out the game here. We're gonna have 3 action points and this resolves. Okay. Perfect. Oh, we get hit with... Okay, so it was hypothermia. I think my opponent just loses, unfortunately, because we have so many action points. Oh, oops. I misplayed. It's kind of hard sometimes to Talishar. Sometimes you forget. Alright, my opponent scoops it up. Oh, unless they came back. I think maybe they just DC'd for a second. Yeah, there's an issue with Talishar. Sometimes you like kind of forget what's on the table. Because I think the more correct play would have been, well, obviously the more correct play would have been to to activate Foundry Heart and banish 2 cards, and that way we'd have 1 extra resource here, so we would have guaranteed lethal, or at least we would get our opponent's tunic, right? Yeah, because then that's just a misplay on our end, unfortunately. Okay. So we'll come in here for 4. Oh, another hypo. Okay, an amulet device. Oh wow, so it didn't even block. So yeah, we would have had lethal if we didn't misplay there. So that's just mostly an issue with Talishar, and it's just kind of difficult to remember what's on the table. Okay, so my opponent hits me with an Ice Chain here. We're just gonna opt not to pay for anything, and then we're gonna discard the max velocity. And that's fine. Yeah, we're gonna pay the 2. And then, unfortunately, my opponent is dead here. So what did we learn this game? Well, my opponent took a lot of damage to throw back the over the health attacks. What did we learn? What did we learn? So the Michael Hamilton list took a lot of damage to throw these back, which I mean, I don't know if it's correct or not, right? Oh, the last card in my opponent's hand was a Blizzard. Interesting. Okay, a few thoughts after that game. A lot of the attacks in that version of the Iyslander list blocked for 2. Cards like Scar for Scar, Fiendals, as well as I'm pretty sure Wounded Bull only blocks for 2 as well. I can double check that, but I'm pretty sure that it does. Yeah, it blocks for 2. So that list doesn't seem like it actually has as strong of a defending capability, and it felt a lot more tempo based. I mean, our opponent was pretty much actively racing us at one point. It actually worked out pretty well considering they were able to go Scar for Scar and a Wounded Bull off of a 3-card hand and present 12 damage. Like, that's a lot of damage, and it honestly kept us on a pretty tight race with them. I think Dash is one of the few heroes, I think besides maybe a couple like aggro decks that can actually present like that kind of raw output damage just off of like 3-card hands. So that was pretty interesting because it was a lot more aggressive than a normal Iyslander game, but I think my opponent was correct that like unless if they hit that hypothermia, unless they hit the CLF and it's actively an arsenal, then you're able just to run them over really quickly because you're still able to present a threat before they're even able to basically disrupt you. Because if you open up a throttle, even if they hypothermia or they CLF you, you're still able to have a threat that they need to respond. So even if they disrupt you and pitch an Away Moon, deal damage, and they want to keep a card for the next turn, you still presented 6 damage they need to deal with. And that raw output, I think, is just too hard for Iyslander to keep up with. I think if you even knew that they were going to be on that style of list, I think you just start Pounder. Induction Chamber didn't really do a whole lot for us that game, and I think Pounder would have actually even closed the game out faster. But yeah, I think that's just my overall thoughts. I think that Dash feels pretty good in the matchup. You have really easy access to AB3. Iyslander isn't able to present a lot of damage very quickly, and if she does, you're able to pretty efficiently pay for it with the ratio of blues in the deck. And I think your numbers are just too big for her to deal with. You know, 36 life is pretty difficult. And the reason for starting Induction Chamber there is that you can't fatigue in that matchup. So she has very poor blocking capabilities with her armor, as opposed to other decks, right? She has Tunic, Hornet Peak, and Ironhide Gauntlet, which do block in total for 5, but there's no battle worn there, so it's pretty difficult for her to get use out of the equipment more than once. And what that means is that you can pretty much pressure her even without Induction Chamber, but having Induction Chamber just means that late game, if she gets really low, but she starts full blocking and you can't necessarily cross the finish line, Induction Chamber gives you a very easy way to leak 2 damage every single turn consistently, especially because she also can't block wide either. So if you're able to do that, then there's pretty much no way that she can actively fatigue you. So it's just sort of an insurance policy against that kind of counter strategy to the deck. But overall, it feels pretty good. I can do another one because I know that this was a little bit, it was pretty quick. I feel like I couldn't really show a lot of the decision trees within the deck, but hopefully this was still helpful regardless. Let me know. Thank you for watching.